Last month, shoppers in Texas walked into supermarkets only to find that the price of lettuce had shot up by a jaw-dropping 163%. In Iowa, over 500 family farms have shut down in just a year and a half. And in California, once proudly known as the nation's breadbasket, more than 1 million acres of farmland have become useless. It's hard to believe, but America, the land that once promised overflowing abundance, is now facing a food future we never imagined. For decades, we thought we were untouchable when it came to feeding ourselves. But that belief, it's starting to crack. Behind every empty grocery shelf is a story. A farmer who couldn't make ends meet. A grandparent choosing between groceries or prescription meds. This isn't a future we're predicting. It's already starting to unfold. In this video, we'll uncover the 10 states that are on the edge of the biggest food crisis in modern U.S. history. These are the places where food shortages are no longer a fluke. They're a warning, a preview of what could become the new normal. We've put together all the numbers and facts from trusted public sources. This isn't hype. It's not financial advice or a political statement. It's a wake-up call, something millions of Americans are already feeling in their day-to-day lives. Let's begin with a place that might shock you. Did you know that a state that once grew nearly half of all the fruits and veggies in America is now importing lettuce from Mexico? That's right. Welcome to California. Yes, California is the land of celebrities and surfboards, but it's also the agricultural giant of the U.S., producing over 80% of America's almonds, 90% of its romaine lettuce, and almost every winter strawberry you've ever eaten. And yet, by mid-2025, more than 1,200 farms in California's Central Valley had shut their gates for good. In cities like Fresno and Bakersfield, produce sections are often half empty, and a small bag of baby kale now costs more than $6. This isn't an exception anymore. It's becoming routine. While drought is a big part of the problem, it's just scratching the surface. At the root is a broken water system, one that favors cities and industries over farmers. Irrigation costs have skyrocketed. Many farmers can't afford to keep their crops alive, let alone profitable. Then there's the labor crisis. California's farming industry has long relied on immigrant workers. But with stricter immigration policies and the soaring cost of living, many have left. Fields are left unpicked. Entire crops are wasted. One farmer in Modesto said it best. His family had been growing strawberries for 3 generations. This year, he destroyed nearly 70% of his crop. No water, no workers, and costs that keep climbing. What's happening in California isn't just about a few missing vegetables. It's about a system that's breaking down. When the farms go silent, the ripple effect hits all of us. Higher prices, fewer options, and a fragile food chain. If we don't act, rethink our water priorities, support local agriculture, and fix the broken distribution channels, this crisis will grow. And we'll all feel it, not just at the checkout line, but in our homes, our budgets, and our dinner plates. But California is just the beginning. Now, let's head into the heart of the Midwest, to a state that powers America's corn and soybean supply. Welcome to Iowa. When you see a box of cereal pushing $8, it's easy to blame inflation, but the story goes deeper, right into the cornfields of Iowa. What used to be known as America's grain powerhouse is now littered with for sale signs. And that shift? It's hitting all of us at the breakfast table. Iowa has always been essential, producing more corn and soybeans than any other state. It's the engine behind your cereal, your milk, your meat, and even the fuel in your car. But now that engine is sputtering. In early 2025, corn output dropped by nearly 17%, the sharpest fall in almost 20 years. And when the grain dries up, prices across the board go up. Meat, milk, eggs, you name it. Over 500 family farms have vanished from Iowa's landscape in just 18 months. Once vibrant towns are starting to feel empty. Young folks are moving away, leaving aging farmers behind with fields they can no longer afford to plant. The small farms are disappearing, and corporate agriculture is taking over. What was once a community-based way of life is becoming an industry run by a few. And it's not just economics. Iowa's challenge isn't drought, it's too much water. Torrential rains and unpredictable floods are wiping out seeds and delaying harvests by weeks, even months. In a place where timing is everything, that delay is devastating. One woman outside Waterloo, who's farmed soybeans for over 4 decades, said she could only plant on half her land this year. The rest was ruined when the rain stripped away the topsoil. She looked across her muddy fields and said, "We used to feed America. Now I'm not even sure I can feed myself." Farming in Iowa has become a losing battle. With more than 30% of its farmers over 65 and little support to encourage the next generation, the future looks uncertain. Federal aid is lagging, and massive agribusinesses are focused on exporting, not feeding Americans. This is about more than just crops. It's about protecting a way of life. Iowa's farmland isn't just land, it's a lifeline. If it disappears, so does any sense of food independence. And Iowa's not the only state struggling. Now we turn our eyes to Texas, where even the cows are going hungry. Yes, the land of BBQ, brisket, and cattle ranches is facing a food crisis of its own. Not long ago, you could grab a full barbecue meal for under $10. But now, just the meat can cost more than that. It sounds impossible, but in mid-2025, beef prices in cities like Dallas and Houston surged by nearly 38%, the steepest climb in the nation. Ranchers across Texas are being forced to sell off or slaughter their herds because there's no grass and barely any water. Without cattle, there's no meat. And without meat, Texas loses a huge part of its identity, and so does America. The crisis is spreading from dusty farms to city streets. Affordable grocery stores like Fiesta Mart and Foodtown are shutting their doors in struggling neighborhoods. Families are finding themselves making impossible choices: fill the gas tank or feed everyone dinner. From the wide plains of Iowa to the sprawling fields of Texas, the food crisis is creeping closer than most realize. But there are more stories to tell. Let's move to the next state, where even fishing families are now struggling to put food on their own tables. You'd think a place like Texas, where cattle roam and grills never cool down, would be immune to a food crisis. But the truth is, even here, families are struggling to afford the very meat raised in their own backyard. The causes? It's not just drought, though that's a major player. Texas is also being hammered by erratic storms, punishing central and western farms with floods and winds that leave destruction behind. But nature isn't the only enemy. Logistics are falling apart too. Cold storage facilities can't keep up. Trucking routes are stalling, and labor shortages are pushing the system to its limits. Rising fuel prices and skyrocketing seasonal insurance have made it harder for farmers to simply stay in business. And then there's the export problem. Major food companies are chasing profits abroad, shipping meat to Asia and Europe, while Texans are left staring at empty meat counters and inflated prices. Imagine that. The state famous for feeding the nation can't even feed its own people. One longtime cattle rancher in San Angelo said it best: "Every cow I sell isn't just money, it's a memory." After 4 decades and nearly 300 head of cattle, he's down to 1. Not for sale, just for remembrance. A quiet tribute to the life his family once lived. The fix won't come from federal talking points alone. Real change has to happen where the food is grown. We need stronger local networks, fairer prices, and policies that let communities keep control of their food. Because when meat becomes scarce, the next question is, will milk even be guaranteed? Let's head north to Nebraska, once the quiet, dependable dairy heart of the Midwest. A state where fresh milk used to be a given, a simple part of daily life. Not anymore. By mid-2025, more than a quarter of Nebraska's family farms had shut down or fallen into debt. That's not just a statistic. It's entire communities watching their livelihoods disappear. Hundreds of small and medium-sized dairy farms have closed their doors in just 2 years, and milk prices in rural towns have shot up by 20 to 30%. It's gotten so bad that some schools and nursing homes have started using powdered milk or switching to imports. Yes, in the land of dairy cows, we're now importing milk, and it's not just dairy. Corn production, vital to both livestock feed and general agriculture, has dropped nearly 35% since 2020. Meat processing plants across Omaha, Grand Island, and surrounding towns have scaled back, unable to secure enough raw materials to operate normally. Why is this happening? Crushing farm debt is a big reason. Costs for fuel, fertilizer, and farm equipment have doubled in just 5 years. Inflation and global supply chain breakdowns made every dollar harder to stretch. And to make things worse, big dairy corporations now dominate the market, slashing prices so low that small farms can't survive. A dairy farmer from Norfolk summed it up with heartbreaking honesty. "I always thought I'd be milking cows until I physically couldn't anymore. But I had to sell them all. Not because I'm old, but because I couldn't keep losing money. For the first time, she said, she doesn't know where her grandchildren's milk will come from. But she knows it won't be from Nebraska. What we're watching isn't just an agricultural collapse, it's the slow. Nebraska used to be steady, reliable. Now, even that stability is crumbling. So the question becomes, will America be humble enough to turn back and protect the roots that once fed the nation? Or will we continue to watch these quiet farms vanish while our shelves grow emptier? Stick with us, because next, we're heading to a state that once grew crops in abundance, but is now seeing its topsoil literally blow away in the wind. At this point, it's not just about subsidies. True support means giving young people a reason to return to the soil, not just offering funds, but access to land, water, and technology that fits this century. Without bold steps to reignite domestic agriculture, we're not just losing farms, we're risking the foundation of our nation's food security. Reviving places like Nebraska isn't just about saving a state, it's about safeguarding the whole country. But if we don't act soon, the cracks in our system could grow into a collapse. Just look at what's happening down south, in the Sunshine State itself. Florida, famous for its golden groves and morning glasses of fresh orange juice, is now facing a bitter truth. We may soon have to import oranges from Brazil. It sounds impossible, right? But it's already happening. In just 2 years, Florida's orange production has plummeted by a staggering 65%, hitting its lowest point in almost a century. Compare that to 2004, when over 240 million boxes of oranges rolled out of the groves. This season, it's less than 16 million. Drive through counties like Polk, Highlands, or Hendry, and you'll see empty stalls where bustling farmers' markets used to thrive. For many of Florida's retirees, a simple glass of orange juice in the morning has become a luxury item. How did it come to this? It's not the lack of sunshine, it's the lack of protection, both from natural threats and weak policy. A disease known as greening has swept through citrus farms, stunting trees and turning once sweet oranges bitter. Since the 2010s, this disease has devastated harvests. Add to that soaring labor costs, fertilizer prices, and ineffective pest control, and farmers are left with nothing but loss. Worse still, when hurricanes hit and storms tear through groves, compensation is slow and inadequate. Veteran farmers are leaving the land not because they want to, but because they can't survive. Florida isn't just losing crops, it's losing part of its soul. Once the pride of American agriculture, it's now a warning sign. And when local food is replaced by imports, we're not just saving pennies. We're sacrificing generations of knowledge, integrity, and hard work. It doesn't have to be this way. Florida needs serious reinvestment in disease-resistant crops, in replanting native species, and in reviving the local food infrastructure. But this is where all of us play a role too. Supporting American-grown produce isn't just a matter of preference, it's an act of patriotism. Florida oranges should be a daily staple, not a rare treat. And while we're talking about staples, there's another one you probably eat without thinking about it: bread. The all-American sandwich, that comforting lunchbox favorite, is starting to feel more expensive and harder to come by. And the trail leads straight to Kansas. Welcome to the breadbasket of America, a place where wheat once grew in endless waves. But today, that golden sea is drying up. In 2024, Kansas reported its lowest wheat yield in nearly 60 years. Nearly 40% of wheat fields were left unharvested, abandoned due to severe drought and soil degradation. Flour mills in cities like Wichita and Salina are now operating well below capacity. And without wheat, there's no flour. Without flour, no bread, no pasta, no cereal. Prices for all these essentials have already surged by 18%, and this is just the beginning. So what happens when the land of bread runs out of wheat? That's what we'll explore next. In a strange twist of irony, people in Kansas, America's breadbasket, are now buying imported flour from Canada and other countries. But it's no bargain. Tariffs have driven prices sky high, and for many families, even a basic bag of flour is becoming unaffordable. Meanwhile, local farmers, burdened by mounting debts and empty harvests, are being forced to sell off their land. Not to other farmers, but to corporations converting those acres into industrial zones or wind and solar fields. The land that once fed a nation is being paved over or rebranded, and with it, we're losing more than just wheat. We're losing a vital piece of America's agricultural soul. When the heart of farming falters, It sends shockwaves across the country. Prices climb, trust erodes, and farmers who fed generations are left asking whether their nation still stands with them. If we want a future where Kansas, and farms like it, can survive, we need bold action. Federal support must focus on small-scale farmers, invest in water-saving irrigation tech, and re-establish agricultural land protections. But even more than policy, what we need is awareness. When you choose American-grown food, you're choosing to keep these lands alive. We used to proudly say, "This bread is made from American wheat. This milk is from American cows." But today we have to ask, if Kansas wheat is failing, what's left that can still stand strong? Arizona once shocked the world by transforming desert into vibrant vegetable fields. That miracle is fading. In just 5 years, Arizona has lost more than 40% of its green vegetable cultivation. Lettuce, broccoli, and kale are vanishing. Western grocery shelves now fill up with vegetables from Mexico, 70% in some markets, while Arizona's own greens are becoming rare. The reason? Water, or rather, the lack of it. The Colorado River, once Arizona's lifeline, is drying up. And water policies now favor growing cities and industries over farmers. A place that once represented agricultural resilience is being abandoned, not by nature, but by mismanaged priorities. And it's not just Arizona. Oregon, once celebrated for its crisp, organic vegetables, is withering too. From the Willamette Valley to Columbia River farms, the decline is sharp. In just 2 years, clean vegetable and fruit production has dropped over 30%. This year alone, nearly 1,200 family farms have shut down, permanently. At markets in cities like Salem and Eugene, locals are stunned. Homegrown lettuce, strawberries, and tomatoes are nearly gone, replaced by pricey imports from Mexico and Peru. The overflowing baskets once bursting with color now sit half empty, filled with wilted greens and growing concern. Farmers are pulling up young crops, not to sell, but because they can't afford to irrigate them. Skyrocketing water rental and electricity costs have made it impossible to survive. Meanwhile, giant food corporations drive down vegetable prices, leaving small farmers squeezed from both ends. This is more than a food crisis. It's a test of who we are. Are we a nation that allows the roots of its food supply to rot while turning a blind eye? Or will we rise to protect the hands that have always fed us? America's food doesn't just come from factories or foreign fields. It comes from families, from tradition, from land cared for over generations. If we want to keep calling it American food, we need to protect the Americans who grow it, before the last seeds are sown in someone else's soil. And while rising costs weigh heavy on farmers everywhere, Oregon's story is particularly heartbreaking. Environmental policies meant to protect the planet have instead become tangled restrictions that hurt the very people trying to grow clean, sustainable food. Emissions taxes, complicated regulations, and reliance on massive distributors have boxed out small-scale farmers. And those who once taught their kids about the importance of eating local and organic, they're now the ones selling their land, forced to give up on the very dream they helped build. Oregon, once a beacon of green living and eco-conscious farming, is fading into a memory. But it doesn't have to be this way. We need immediate, targeted support, emergency subsidies for water and energy, direct purchase systems between farms and communities, and smart policies that lift small farms up instead of locking them out. And you, yes, you, can help. Every time you choose a bunch of locally grown spinach or a basket of Oregon strawberries, you're not just buying produce. You're voting for a future where farms survive, traditions endure, and American soil keeps growing American food. But if we don't act soon, that future might vanish faster than we expect. In Michigan, autumn used to be magical. Apple orchards stretched to the horizon. Cherry baskets overflowed by the roadside, and every harvest felt like a community celebration. Today, that picture is rapidly fading. In just 3 years, fruit tree acreage has dropped by nearly 25%. Fertilizer and fuel costs have soared by 40%, pushing small farms out of business. Now, instead of orchards, there are concrete parking lots, new condos, and industrial sites. The farmers' markets in Detroit and Grand Rapids are growing bare. Local fruit is harder to find and more expensive, forcing shoppers to turn to out-of-state or imported produce. Meanwhile, government protections are weak. Cheap imports flood the market, undercutting local growers. Many aging farmers have no one to pass their land to, and the younger generation wants nothing to do with the economic roulette that farming has become. What's disappearing isn't just Michigan's apples or pumpkins. It's the spirit of community, the pride in seasonal harvests, the sense of place. When fruit has to travel thousands of miles to reach our table, something essential has been lost. And finally, we come to New Mexico, a land of open skies, warm sun, and enormous potential. It should have been the future of American farming, but instead, the fields are going silent. In the last 5 years, New Mexico has lost nearly 30% of its farmland. The reason is simple: no water, no crops. Droughts have devastated avocado and tomato farms. Without irrigation and support, farmers are giving up, not because they want to, but because they have no other choice. This isn't just one state's problem, it's a national crisis. When vegetables, wheat, milk, fruit, and meat can no longer be produced domestically, we become completely dependent on outside sources. And that's a dangerous place to be. The truth is, America doesn't have a food problem. It has a policy problem. It has a priority problem. And it has a forgetting problem. We're forgetting who feeds us. But we can still turn this around. Support local farmers. Demand better from policymakers. Choose food that comes from your land, your people, your country. Because the day we stop growing food on American soil is the day we lose more than just our meals. We lose a piece of who we are. In cities like Albuquerque and Santa Fe, the crisis has reached the grocery aisles. Shelves that were once full now sit half empty. And it's not just inconvenient, it's life-altering, especially for the elderly and low-income families who depend on consistent, affordable access to food. New Mexico stands as a stark reminder of what happens when climate change meets a lack of preparation. When middle-aged and elderly farmers are forced to fight for the land that's been in their families for generations, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of legacy are we really leaving behind? Because this isn't just about economics. It's about identity, about culture, and about the soul of a nation built on hard work and fertile soil. The slow collapse of farming in America's top agricultural states isn't just a statistic. It's the heartbreak of millions of honest, hard-working people who've given everything to feed others. So when you see an empty shelf or watch food prices climb, know that there's a deeper story behind it, one that affects all of us, our children, our communities, our future. And now, we want to hear from you. Have you or someone you know experienced difficulties in finding fresh, affordable food where you live? Share your stories in the comments below. Your voice matters, and by talking about it, we can raise awareness, spark change, and support each other. If this video moved you, if it made you think, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. That small action helps amplify real stories and brings attention to issues that truly matter. All the facts and stories in this video are based on publicly available data, real agricultural reports, and the lived experiences of countless Americans. We don't speak for any political party or government. We're here to spark awareness, reflection, and action. Thank you for watching. Let's keep the conversation going, and let's not wait until it's too late to care about the land that feeds us all.